Good morning, everyone. It's Sunday, March 24th, the first Sunday of spring, and it's time to go on the record. He's an old school prosecutor in a time of rapid criminal justice churn. How DA Tim Cruz is keeping true to his brand of justice in Plymouth County.
Question for all Bay State drivers: to raise or not raise the gas tax?
And Senator Ed Markey turns a political contribution from Bob Kraft into a donation for the fight against human trafficking. Why more of this could be coming. Let's go on the record.
From WCVB Channel 5, the inside word from Washington to Beacon Hill. Today's newsmakers are going on the record.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Studio C. Welcome to On the Record. I'm Ed Harding, along with News Center 5's political reporter Janet Wu. Thank you for joining us on this Sunday. And our guest this morning is Timothy Cruz, the District Attorney of Plymouth County, although he tells me to call him Tim. So not Timothy, but Tim. Tim is a Republican and has served as the Plymouth County DA since 2001. He's the president of the Massachusetts District Attorneys Association, vice president of the National District Attorneys Association. He's a graduate of BC and Suffolk University Law School. Thank you for joining us this morning.
Thanks so much for having me. I appreciate it.
So thanks for being here. Lots of chatter these weeks about the solicitation and prostitution charges that were lodged against Patriots owner Bob Kraft. As a result, there's a lot of focus on massage parlors using victims of human trafficking. Police raided a Norwell spa, which is in Plymouth County.
Right.
Is your office gearing up to deal with more of these establishments, and what exactly are you doing?
Yeah, we've actually been dealing with this stuff for the last couple of years. We've had trainings as pertains to CSEC, commercial sexual exploitation of children, because any child that's under the age of 18 who is getting, whether it be food, money, whatever it may be, in exchange for sex, is potentially going to be a victim of commercial sexual exploitation of kids. So we've been training through our Children's Advocacy Center. We've been going out and about trying to train police officers, and how can we focus on making sure we can protect these children, because of the fact that it is child abuse when you're dealing with a child under that age. So we continue to work and train and deal with it. In our county, in last year, we had approximately 130 different allegations of commercial sexual exploitation of children. It's everywhere, not just Plymouth County, it's everywhere, but that's what we've been dealing with and focusing with.
And how many did you end up successfully prosecuting?
We actually just had a conviction of probably about a month or so ago down in Plymouth Superior Court. We have others that are ongoing right now, and a lot of them, like most of our child sex abuse cases, are ongoing investigations, which many times you may not be able to get to the end of the road, but it's definitely worthwhile.
So frame it for me. Is that a large number? Is that a growing number? Is that a retreating number? Is that 130 you mentioned?
I think it's a growing number knowledge-wise. That same year, we had more than 1,200 kids in our county who had been physically or sexually abused. Then you compare that to the 130 of the CSEC kids. So I think that as we train more and we learn more what to look for, I expect our numbers to go up. Because
is it hard to get a conviction? Is it hard?
I think it's always a challenge nowadays, and you're dealing with people who are potentially scared of the system. They don't want to come forward, and they feel completely intimidated by it. So how do you make people who may not even be citizens of this country, how do you make them feel that don't mistrust us, trust us? My job as district attorney is to protect all victims. It doesn't matter what your status is here. If somebody's hurting a child, if somebody's hurting an adult, we have a responsibility to go forward. And if necessary, for any victim or any witness in any case that an individual may be undocumented, we provide U visas and special temporary visas here to help us do our job and protect them.
All right, I want to move on to the next item. Many cities and towns are declaring themselves as sanctuary cities, but police are still cooperating with ICE officials, arresting illegal residents at courthouses when they show up for appearances. Here's the question: should voters' wishes be ignored in cases like this? What do you think?
Well, I think it depends whether or not there's going to be a vote. I mean, I know I just appeared in front of the Brockton Ordinance Committee last week as pertains to the Brockton United Council, which is suggesting that they should prohibit Brockton police officers from talking to ICE individuals with information. Now, I am against that ordinance because I don't think it changes anything. And first and foremost, we've all been told that potentially we could lose federal funds from our federal grants. We're a member of Project Safe Neighborhood, which is a $500,000 grant that I've received for the city of Brockton. The Brockton Police have another $600,000 grant. So that's $1.2 million that goes to an under-resourced community. Why would you want to potentially jeopardize that just to have something on a piece of paper? And also the other thing, down in our Brockton area, our numbers crime-wise have gone down, they've plummeted quite honestly over the last few years because of the fact that the federal agencies are working in conjunction, ATF, DEA, FBI, state police, parole, probation, state police assigned to the DA's office, working together, focusing on the small group of individuals who commit the majority of crime. Our gun crime in Brockton between 2017 and 2018 went down 22%. We need to stay on top
So
of that.
do you believe that the local police are ignoring the ordinance and they are still working very closely with ICE?
Well, the ordinance has not been approved yet.
Will, I guess I should say.
I hope it's not approved, but there's always going to be a way where we can always talk and make sure that we get information. I don't think that our local police, not that I'm aware of anyways, are calling ICE as pertains to individual status. That may become an issue at a bail hearing, whether or not somebody's here legally, whether or not you can make sure they're going to reappear for the next court hearing. But for the most part, I'm not aware of that. I hear about it, I just don't hear or see it.
Let's talk about marijuana. It's now legal in Massachusetts. More stores are opening throughout the state. Our Supreme Court has ruled that police can arrest drivers believed to be under the influence of drugs, but there is no reliable test to really confirm this as far as marijuana is concerned. So what's the best rule of thumb for those of you who are supposed to be, you're charged with, dealing with these violators, the alleged violators?
It's an incredible challenge. It's an incredible challenge for law enforcement to try to prove cases where we don't have a machine analogous to a breathalyzer, or even a quantified number that we can use to say you have this 0.08 like we have for alcohol, and therefore you're per se.
So should they be
influence.
arrested? Should they be detained? Should they be charged?
I think that the police officers need to make, based on their training, their observations, if they make the determination that John Doe is under the influence of an intoxicating liquor or alcohol or drug, they should arrest them, because of the fact it puts the rest of us in jeopardy. We have OUI drug cases throughout the Commonwealth of Massachusetts.
Isn't that a broad brush? In other words, you're putting it in the judgment of a police officer whether someone's under the influence of drugs?
We've been doing that forever. I mean, the police officer will make the determination regarding drugs and alcohol if somebody has an odor of alcohol, their glassy eyes, or unsteady in their feet.
Given, right.
And also with marijuana, they're going to make observations. What would they do alternative to that? Say, okay, I smell marijuana. That doesn't get me into the car, but I can make my initial observations from my training. And also, there's also issues out there as pertains to whether or not we should have sufficient drug recognition experts in court, which is another whole issue. I know Governor Baker's putting together some information trying to get more resources for that.
But you acknowledge that just because they are arrested doesn't mean that you can charge them or successfully prosecute them?
No, I think we have to look at each case when it gets brought to us. But I'm glad for the fact that the police, I think, who are facing an incredibly challenging time right now with that, because as we told them during that whole debate on question 4 a few years ago, we weren't ready for this yet. And just like we said that, myself and other fellow prosecutors, we weren't ready. Now we know we're definitely not ready.
The next topic is something we talked with Rachel Rollins about here earlier on OTR, but there were a group of new prosecutors and politicians nationwide that are calling for DAs like yourself, for example, to step back from charging what they would call minor offenses or misdemeanors, usually involving smaller amounts of drugs. A, do you oppose this?
Yes.
Okay, so B, why?
Because of the fact I'm not a legislator. The legislature's put together laws out there. And my job, I've been doing this job either as a defense attorney or a prosecutor for 34, 35 years now. And I see that when you have individuals who say they're going to be shoplifting, I believe is one of the crimes they talked about. And if you don't have some sort of avenue to make sure that John Doe is not going to continue to shoplift, that person's going to go right back and do it again. I believe that, yes, do we need to have diversionary programs? We've had them for years. They're nothing new. When you talk about the progressive DAs that are out there, not just in our country, in our state, but in our country, you talk about individuals who think they have new ideas. All those diversionary programs we've been doing for years. And I think the challenge that I have with this right now is that a lot of these progressive changes are making defendants into victims and making victims invisible. We need to stand up for the victims in our counties. We need to make sure that the mom and pop store owner is not getting ripped off by individuals who are going to continually show up. Other crimes they're talking about, not prosecuting, possession B with intent, that's a drug distribution charge. We're in the middle of the biggest opiate craze right now. We have to make sure that people who are dealing and trafficking in drugs are prosecuted. We need to help the people who have opiate addictions and problems. We have drug courts, we have mental health courts, we have all the issues that we continue to deal with, because the criminal justice system is the depository of society's problems. And then they look at us to change everything. We need to be more proactive and get in front of mental health issues, drug abuse issues, broken homes, kids that need help, kids that don't have any leadership or mentors in their life. It's a big problem, and we at the DA's offices are dealing with the cases as we can to make sure we can help victims and also hold people accountable.
You ready for the OTR pop quiz as we change the subject matter here on the I didn't hear an answer.
I guess I'm ready.
Did you? I didn't hear an answer in there. All right, this is time for the world famous, hermetically sealed OTR pop quiz. And our topic is law enforcement in history and entertainment.
Uh-oh.
The first question is a multiple choice. In the 1970s, Oscar-winning actor Michael Douglas appeared in a network crime series in which he played a police detective. What was the name of it? The Streets of Philadelphia, The Streets of New Orleans, The Streets of San Francisco?
The Streets of San Francisco with Carl Malden.
I was just going to say, for bonus points, who was his partner? You get the bonus points. All right. So that means you got two.
Right.
Two for the place you want. All right. Let's go to the big screen. In 1982, a legal drama, again on the big screen, about a down-on-his-luck attorney taking on a medical malpractice case was filmed here in Boston. It was called The Verdict. Who had the starring role in that movie? Was it Robert Redford? Was it Paul Newman? Was it Robert Mitchum?
B. Paul Newman, final answer.
Man, Mike, you didn't even have to phone a friend. We'll be right back with DA Tim Cruz in just a minute.